we can help the NCR. Warning Eddie leads to the assault taking place and no reputation lost with the NCR. However, the troopers who assault the facility will be naturally hostile to you, and engaging with them could lead to a rise in infamy. Instead, we're going to side with the NCR in this one for the sake of it, both due to the danger the powder gangers impose and due to the fact that they become less prevalent to the point of not mattering at all very shortly afterward. Heading over to the correctional facility and talking to Sergeant Lee will begin the assault.
So sorry guys, I realized I probably lost people. I can't keep Streamlabs running, so I'm just gonna let it die, over and over and over again.
All of the powder gangers along the wall will be hostile. Surprisingly, the gangers in the visitor center will not be dealt with by the NCR, even after the fighting has ceased, meaning entering it is still hostile territory, although Myers won't fight you as he is still quest relevant. With Eddie taken care of, NCR troopers will now loiter around the area. You can return to Lieutenant Hayes to deliver the news, and he'll congratulate you for it, but there's still the issue with Prim, which the NCR still isn't willing to deal with, despite the facility not being a factor anymore. To get more information on Benny, we need to save Deputy Beagle, who is being held hostage within the Bison Hotel. There's a few ways you can enter the hotel proper. A broken down set of roller coaster tracks can allow you to get into the upper-level balcony, but the front door is as good an option as any, especially with a surplus of stealth boys and silenced weapons. Skyrim wasn't the only Bethesda game to popularize the ranged stealth build, let me tell you. Traversing the hotel is simple enough. There's a few convicts to take out along the way, and if you have the lockpicking skill for it, you can open a door that will take you straight to Beagle without needing to deal with too many hostiles. Though we'll be taking them all out anyway for the experience and items. It wouldn't be a Fallout/Elder Scrolls game without looting every corpse we come across. We can convince Beagle to tell us about Benny right then and there if we can pass the skill check for it, but most likely you'll be releasing him first and maybe convincing him to help you kill the remaining convicts. Regardless of how you did it, once Beagle is outside, he will tell you about how Benny and the cons moved on from Prim and began traveling towards the next town over, that being Nipton. We're not done in Prim just yet, however. There's still one more quest for us to take care of, as well as the ability to unlock our first companion. Prim is sheriffless, and Beagle is both unfit for the role and also refuses to take it, meaning it's up to you to find someone to take care of the town in your absence. There's three options for this, one of those being Myers from the correctional facility. Since Myers is one of the potential candidates, he isn't openly hostile to you when shit hits the fan during the raid, and regardless of the reputation for powder gangers in general. In order to get Myers to take on the task of sheriff, he needs to get a pardon from the NCR. Alternatively, you can ask Hayes to have someone from the NCR take over and officially put Prim under their jurisdiction. If you've been following my views on the NCR in general up to this point, you might think both of these options sound less than desirable. Luckily, there's a more neutral alternative. Within the Vicky and Vance Casino is a Protectron known as Prim Slim, who can be reprogrammed through a science skill of 30 or with specific miscellaneous scrap items. This allows Slim to become the sheriff of the town and also leads to Beagle losing his deputy status, and let you figure out which option we chose. With the town considered safe, there's one more stop we can make, right by the corpse of one of the 6 couriers who has been shot dead. This specific courier was carrying the pair of dice I mentioned earlier. Within the Nash residence, which also seems to be the building for the courier service, is a damaged Enclave Eyebot named Eddie. Players can repair him with a very high repair check of 65, but can lower this with a similarly high check of science at 55. This lowers the repair check to 35. Alternatively, items can be used to repair him instead. Eddie is most likely the first companion you'll run into within Fallout New Vegas. You can have up to 2 with you at one time, 1 pet companion and 1 humanoid one. There's 2 pet companions in the game, the first being Eddie, and the first humanoid companion will be meeting shortly, although they won't be joining us immediately. An important mechanic of companions is the related quest lines that each comes with. How these are triggered and progressed is unique to each companion, and worth doing for each one due to the various rewards granted to the player, as well as upgrades to the companions themselves. Eddie, for example, has a set of logs within his file system that can be triggered via hearing specific keywords. There's plenty of NPCs that you can talk to who act as said triggers, and these logs lead into the greater quest arc for Eddie specifically. In the meantime, the next destination for you is Nipton, but there's one detour to make along the way, that being the NCR's Mojave outpost. Around this point in the game, there's a good chance you've obtained at least one Sunset Sarsaparilla star cap. Like in Fallout 3, drinking soda bottles provides you with the cap that was attached to said bottle, since within the universe, caps are used as the main form of currency. Sarsaparilla is specific to Fallout New Vegas, though Nuka-Cola still exists as well. What makes Sarsaparilla special is the 5% chance of you receiving a cap with a blue ghost star underneath it. Once the player has collected at least one of these through drinking beverages until they find one, or finding one in the wild, the player will trigger an event where a man by the name of Malcolm Holmes Malcolm starts off the conversation under false pretenses. But this excuse quickly crumbles as he doesn't find himself to be a good liar. The true reason Malcolm approached you is because he witnessed you getting a star cap. How this is possible is unknown, as there are many locations where you could receive the cap that Malcolm simply couldn't have been able to be there at the same time. This requires another suspension of disbelief from the player. You're forced to play along with the idea that Malcolm saw you get one of the star caps.
You will heed my words.
Couldn't realistically have been in at the same time. It's a jarring occurrence and not the only time this happens. Excuses like this from the developers can temporarily pull you out of the roleplay or immersive aspect of the game, while you have to mentally justify that this is somehow a logical setup for a quest, even though it clearly is not. Malcolm gives you the rundown on the mechanics involved with star caps. There's a legend that collecting 50 of them will lead to unimaginable treasure guarded by an enigmatic individual known as Festus, who we'll meet later. People will get so riled up about the legend that they'll actually attack one another if they know you have star caps. Asking Malcolm if he is a collector leads to him denying that he collects any more, and ultimately wouldn't tell you if he was anyway for his own safety. That being said, killing Malcolm reveals that he does have caps on his person, so whether he collects them or not is still up in the air, but he doesn't seem too willing to give them away, suggesting that he is still actively collecting, but isn't someone who would kill another for it. I generally have this interaction with Malcolm immediately after leaving Prim, assuming I received a star bottle cap within that time. Near Prim is a highway patrol station, and beneath my station with a star bottle cap. Further down towards Nipton, you have the opportunity to witness an altercation between two individuals, Thomas and Jacqueline. It's up in the air who will kill who, and can be different every playthrough, or determined by your intervention. Both will tell you the same story, however, that they were attacked by the other for their star bottle caps. Thomas, however, has a journal on his person which sheds a bit more light on the subject. It seems he ran into Jacqueline, who began seducing him on their travels, only to ultimately attempt taking his lucky star cap necklace, suggesting Thomas didn't actually have any knowledge of their perceived value. There's more to the star bottle cap questline once you've reached New Vegas and obtained 50 caps for yourself, but that'll be saved for further down the line within our adventure. Before reaching Nipton, there's a good chance you'll make note of a large statue off into the distance of two members of the NCR, specifically a Desert Ranger and a Nevada Ranger, acting as a symbol of their unification into the NCR. This is in front of the Mojave Outpost, used as a base of operations for some of the NCR, as well as a stopover for caravans that want to go further south. No one's going anywhere south, however, as the roads are essentially closed. There's a lot of frustration emanating from this area, not for the player necessarily, but for the NCR and the carabiniers that are stuck there. The Mojave Outpost is understaffed. Their job is to protect the interstate and those traveling along it, but after the prison break at the NCRCF and the establishment of the outpost at Prim, NCR forces have been stretched thin. You'd think that this would mean our interventions at Prim and the NCRCF would heed my words operational again, but this isn't the case. While Prim is still under NCR jurisdiction, and while the NCR one thing is that after the battle, there's still a lot of manpower that would need to go into getting said facility operational again, meaning that the outpost at Prim may still be considered necessary even with Lieutenant Hayes leaving after everything is said and done. The lack of manpower has led to a lot of danger surrounding the interstate further south, and a backlog of carabiniers who are stuck and frustrated about this fact. Rose of Sharon Cassidy, aka Cass, is one of these frustrated individuals, as well as a potential companion within New Vegas, although we can't recruit her just yet. Talking to Cass allows her to explain how her caravan was destroyed with nothing taken, leading her to believe it was the Legion who are making more and more of a presence within the West. Now, with nothing to do and nowhere to go, she's stuck at the outpost and drinking her sorrows away, which only seems to frustrate her further. She suggests that you check out the Crimson Caravan Bridge south of Vegas if you're looking for work. We'll come back for Cass later, but there's a few things we can do to both boost our supply and gain some fame with the NCR. Talking to Ranger Jackson gets us a job involving exterminating some giant ants. It's nothing special, but it's on the way to the roof of the outpost would like us to go recon the area, considering no one has come out of the town for some time. Nipton is more of a spectacle than an actual town. It's set up for you to arrive at and essentially witness a stage play performed by the Legion, with this most likely being your first interaction with them upon starting the game. You're first met with Oliver Swanwick at the entrance of the town, an ex-powder ganger who can be seen cheering in victory. Approaching Oliver has him informing that he's won the lottery, but doesn't go into much detail further than that before running off and out of the town. Right beside the two of you is the Nipton General Store, and inside is another powder ganger by the name of Boxcars, who is forced to permanently sit down due to having his legs bashed in by hammers. What exactly happened here? Boxcar explains that he and a group of other powder gangers arrived at the town and made a deal with the mayor to hold travelers hostage and essentially strip them for everything that they have
you come
turning
to
them loose. Nipton is considered a bit of a cesspool to the surrounding inhabitants of the Mojave. It's a known stopover for individuals looking to partake in what Nipton is truly known for, sex work. The mayor saw this as an opportunity to make some money by essentially trapping travelers who showed up for it. But then what happened to Boxcar and the rest of the town? Enter the Legion and the lottery. The town was taken over by Legion forces, and as an act of judgment on the town, Volpez and Kulta, the leader of the group of scouts and spies known as the Frumentarii, handed out lottery tickets to every individual within Nipton at the time. First came the lucky losers, who would die a quick death if their number was called. Following this was crucifixion for those called next. It's important to point out that this isn't exactly like the popularized imagery of the crucifixion of Christ. For the most part it is, but the developers seem to have opted for tying individuals to a cross rather than nailing them to it. And this is still fairly accurate to the capital punishment that took place all the way back in the 6th century before Christ. There's nothing you can do for the individuals at the time. All of the NPCs on crosses within Nipton are so near death that to remove them would be to simply kill them anyway. So you can choose to leave them up there to die slowly or put them out of their misery. It's your call and ultimately doesn't affect any part of the narrative, though it would have been an interesting choice to give the player in terms of karma, and where the developers think the act of mercy killing lands on the karmic dial, if you can even classify it as that. Remaining civilians were killed, enslaved, and Boxcar, who was second place, was ultimately set free but not before having his legs broken with hammers. Oliver was then essentially the true winner of this system, being the last one standing. So you can better understand why he was so happy to be free and less interested in being classified as a powder ganger any longer. As a side note, you can attack Boxcar here and he will simply stand up from his chair, fully able to walk and attack you. It's not that he was lying, but more that this just didn't seem to be accounted for by the developers. I'm sure they knew about it, but most likely didn't care. We want Boxcar alive anyway, as he is a key NPC within a side quest, one that I am unsure will be featured in this video. Approaching the town center, you're met with the Legion, who have control over Nipton currently, with Volpez and Kulta, the leader among them. You can fully converse with the character as he has bigger plans for you at the time, and attacking that many legionaries at once is less than likely to end up in your favor. Volpez explains his motivations for the actions that took place in the city, calling it a town of whores that had no moral standing for the individuals that walked through it or partook in its services. This gives us a bit of an outlook into Legion values. Caesar's Legion centers around purity and being holier than thou, seeing acts of weakness and cowardice as things that need to be punished and determining it is their duty to punish those that fall under these categories. While many saw Nipton as a cesspool, but ultimately not a danger or a problem, the Legion sees a virus or blight, one they don't want to see spread, and one they feel a moral obligation to stamp out, in such a way that no one should ever try it again. They hate cowardice and weakness, but look to instill fear into the people of the Mojave, to exert their will, absorb communities by any means necessary, and ultimately punish those who fight back to the point that they no longer exist. It's oddly contradictory. The Legion cares about strength and purity, but kills those who don't fight back and kills those who do in an incredibly violent manner in order to send a message. What the Legion really seems to care about, or what Kaiser himself may seem to care about, is power. And to obtain that power and to create his empire, he has used violence, totalitarianism, and brainwashing/intimidation to exert his will. And those in power within his regime have drunk the Kool-Aid. Those who don't either don't rise rise through the ranks or get punished to the point that it will most likely lead to their death, if not intense physical punishment. Remember how I said that the Legion is inherently evil? This is what I'm talking about. They are meant to stand as a moral contrast to the NCR, even though we can see some similar structure between the two. Both the NCR and the Legion utilize slavery. Both the NCR and the Legion exert their will and take what they want by force. The Legion will commit atrocity after atrocity to send a message, and the NCR will do little to help those individuals unless they are under their jurisdiction. You may not think the NCR are as bad as the Legion, which I believe to be true as well, but the comparison shows you the cracks of the NCR's moral high ground, how they are not an inherent good within the Mojave, but may not be an inherent evil necessarily either. Well, except for the slaves. They do have slaves, and that's pretty evil in my eyes. Vulpes instructs the player to deliver a message to the NCR back at the Mojave outpost, specifically that they are here in the Mojave despite not having control of the dam and are spreading. He wants you to instill fear into the hearts of the NCR with this news of what happened in Nipton, how the town outnumbered the Legion but all were too scared to fight back against them, simply waiting and hoping that their time would not come in terms of the lottery, something Vulpes sees as an unforgivable weakness, and also how he views the rest of the Mojave. The psychological factors that go into people standing up to an oppressive regime are not so easily labeled as weakness, even from a man that gets erect when he burns a mayor alive on a tire fire. There's not much more to do within the outpost. We can pass Vulpes' message along, which forces this one NPC to go down a depressive spiral. We can report back to Ghost, who is sorry to hear about Nipton, and we can report back to Jackson, who will give us a service rifle. With Nipton out of the way, we need to keep moving further down the I-15 to find Benny, and this will take us to a new town and our first human companion. Heading to Novak is when you'll most likely start running into various patrols around the wasteland, specifically NCR and Legionary patrols, but also groups of merchants and doctors sprinkled in between. Legionaries are openly hostile to anyone, including you depending on your fame and infamy with them. By this point in the game, you most likely haven't done anything to openly aggravate them, meaning they won't be hostile towards you, but that shouldn't matter. The Legion patrols the Mojave and attacks anyone on site regardless of if they are NCR or simply merchants. Yet you, someone considered as much a neutral party as a doctor in the wastes, are not targeted at all. Our first interaction with Vulpes makes sense. He had a task for us, and he let us live to complete said task, but these patrols realistically shouldn't know who you are, nor care by this point. If the Legion is pushing into the Mojave, capturing civilians, creating slaves, and attacking the NCR, you should be just as much a target as the rest, especially since you most likely have NCR fame by this point. This isn't a huge detrimental flaw within the reputation system, and you'll see later that we end up pissing off the Legion anyway and immediately rectify the situation. The only real issue here is their seeming neutrality towards you doesn't seem to make a ton of sense based on what we have been presented within the setting of New Vegas. Close to Novak is a large, more traditional town off in the distance known as Camp Searchlight. It was originally occupied by the NCR but ultimately attacked by the Legion, who set off some sort of radiation bomb that heavily irradiated the entire area, both causing feral ghouls to spawn as well as hostile NCR ghouls on top of them. Searchlight is littered with ghouls, and there's a few ways you can deal with that, but before entering the town proper, players can enter the cellar of the local church and run into several scavengers who are looking around in there. Logan, the leader of the group, informs you that he's looking for radiation suits so that they can pillage the town, and asks for your help if you are computer savvy in any way. A minimal science check will allow you to hack into the nearby computer and see that a shipment of radiation suits were ultimately taken around Nipton by individuals who didn't look like NCR troops. This is where Boxcar comes into play, and ultimately the reason he hasn't been killed yet, if that's what you're looking to do. Boxcar is the only one left alive who saw the shipment and points you along your way to a cave that is housing the suits you are looking for, as well as one individual suit for yourself. You can bring these suits back to the scavengers and ultimately take them with you while shooting your way through the town. You make two stops along the way, one in the local police station and one in the local fire department, looking to grab items and miscellaneous parts labeled as NCR. Once you've found everything, the group turns on you and you ultimately have to kill them. There's not much to this quest. I most likely wouldn't have even mentioned it if it wasn't such a large town leading up to Novak, as well as the connection to Boxcar I mentioned previously. It's an excuse to make your way through an irradiated town. There's even a giant rad scorpion fight to go through if that's your thing. You can tell that there is no real layering or choice to the quest that is missing here, since killing Logan doesn't fail the quest like Boxcar would have, but instead completes it. There's a few other quests relating to Searchlight we'll go over later on in the journey, but one can be completed now. All of those ghouls you've been murking with Logan and the gang were NCR soldiers, and as such have dog tags attached to their person. The player can talk to Sergeant Astor about the radiation in Searchlight, and he will ask you to collect dog tags of all of those turned feral. One of the soldiers is actually